Yep, we're live.
And it says we're live. 0 viewers.
We want to let a few people get in here first, or
I guess.
ourselves.
I guess maybe
Tyler, you look nice today.
Considering I just had a baby, I probably look okay.
Yeah, I bet you didn't get any sleep last night. Shoot. All right. How do we see viewers and stuff like that?
Yeah, they're starting to come on now. There's 12 people now.
Okay, cool. Let me retweet this.
Hey, are you guys getting feedback from Crypto Messiah?
No.
If it ends up being total shit, I can go back to the desktop and put on the real headset. This is like a phone headset. I'm kind of ashamed.
Okay. I turned off my video. I was hearing people talk like after they already talked. I don't know, it's weird.
It's kind of like reverb.
You probably have the YouTube channel open up in the background, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a big delay, so.
Where can we see the chat box Q&A? Oh, nice. Oh, 404 error.
So I guess we could start just by talking about the show.
Okay, so do we have people in here? I mean,
yeah.
It says we have 15 viewers right now.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is our first episode of the Decred Assembly. Still want to call it Decred, like I did for a long time, but yes, it is the Decred Assembly. We have myself, Daniel, here today. We have Tyler. From
Hey,
Tyler, Tyler GPU Source, GPUsource.com. And then we also have Dave Collins here, which is the lead developer for the Decred project. We're very excited to have him on. So basically what the Decred Assembly is, and kind of what Decred was built upon was bringing the community together and allowing everybody to participate in determining the future of a blockchain-based project. And that's what this episode and future episodes are going to be all about. Just kind of having an open forum, open discussion with you guys, seeing where you're at with the project, seeing what you'd like to know, hearing you out on any suggestions you might have, and things of that nature. So because of that, it's really important, if you guys do have any questions or, you want to say something. I know you don't have voice capability this time like we did last week. But, please, if you have anything, within reason, put it in the chat. We'll do our best to address it and, hopefully address any concerns or, talk about any ideas you might have. So kind of what we're going to do is myself and Tyler are going to talk about Decred really quick. And then we're going to pass it on to Dave, who, we got a lot of awesome questions in from the community over the last week on the form we posted online. And we can kind of go over those questions and, it's going to be a real chill, real open forum. Anybody's willing to kind of say what they want and participate. So we're just going to kind of see how this goes. And, if you guys have any feedback, of course, after the episode, we're going to improve it as time goes along. So Decred, what brought me to Decred originally was the level of professionalism I saw with the project. I've been in the crypto space since 2013, and I've seen a lot of threads and things of that nature, and I've never seen anything like Decred. From the first moment I saw that OP, I was hooked. And these guys came in, they did it professionally. We knew who they were, and that was kind of just at the very beginning of the time where developers were starting to kind of dox themselves, so to speak. And it was really good to see a face behind a project, and not only faces, but faces that I could trust, faces that have done things for the Bitcoin community. And when you invest in something, it's really important to invest in people. And so that brought me here, and I've been here ever since. So I'll let Tyler kind of tell his story about how he found out about Decred next.
Yeah.
If he likes, I feel like it's kind of the same thing.
So sorry guys, I might be out of it a little bit today. I just had a baby yesterday. So my wife is a coin artist, in case you don't know, and she is she's a contractor. She does a lot of the marketing stuff for the Decred project. And months ago, we were just kind of browsing through alternatives to Bitcoin after kind of, I guess, all the issues that keep arising and the debates that keep happening within the Bitcoin community, and it seems like it's never going to end. And I guess we started looking for different projects that we thought we could invest in, and Decred came up, and I think she was like going through the Bitcoin Talk forum, and like there was somebody had posted something that about the look at Decred, this stupid shit coin. And then all these all these legendary people came out of the woodwork and were like, no, this is like a really legit project. You shouldn't be saying that. The guys behind this project built BTC Suite, and then I was like, wow. And it's pretty much a full node version of Bitcoin written in Go. And I was just really amazed with the developers behind the project. And what I found is that investing in crypto projects, because I've been in this space for feels like forever now. I've been burned in so many ways on shitty projects, and I think really investing in a good project with a solid community, but also that has a really solid dev foundation was really important for me. So as soon as I found Decred, we started buying it up, and then we started staking. And the guys that work on the Ubiq project were fundamental in helping me get set up with my wallet and stuff. And even though I'm a developer, man, it was still tricky in those earlier versions. Sometimes you would start, DCRD up, and things wouldn't exactly work, or the DCR CTL wouldn't exactly work like it was supposed to, and it was a little frustrating. And it was especially doing everything on the command line because I run on a Mac. And but yeah, I mean, as soon as I started getting into it and I started staking, then I really saw wow, this is a really cool project. And buying tickets it's one of my favorite pastimes in crypto.
That was addictive.
And
It's fun.
and we
Yeah.
like every day you just open up your wallet and you're like, oh, I voted in
magic,
X amount more tickets today.
Right.
But the cool thing is you're not just buying tickets, are you? You're actually participating in a form of voting that's been in Decred from the beginning. That's something we're going to let Dave talk about here in a little bit. But before we get into that, I really just kind of wanted to give a brief statement, a brief overview of what Decred is now, what it is becoming, and what it could be. So right now, Decred is on the cusp of getting its transformation into a fully fledged, decentralized, autonomous organization. And that's very exciting because that'll give us capabilities that will allow the project to kind of move past any challenge we come across, climb any mountain, continue our development in a way that we don't have these stalls that we've seen with the Bitcoin community, where they just fight over. They've been fighting over SegWit for 8 months now, or 6 months, or it's absolutely absurd. They have bigger fish to fry. So with Decred, what's amazing about it is that it really can be whatever we want it to be, which is quite incredible. If we want Decred to eventually be the biggest competitor to Ethereum, that's our prerogative. We can push it in that direction. If we want to have Decred be the most amazing payment network in the crypto space, we can push it in that direction. And I really just like a project, backed by this kind of horsepower, with the development team that we have. These guys are capable of anything. They can do anything, and they've already proven that. So we're very, very fortunate to have them on our side. And it's really cool to just be able to push this project in whatever direction I see fit as the space evolves, and not only just how I see fit, but to communicate with everybody else and kind of get that group think going, the group think going on, and have everybody kind of put their say into it. So that's what's awesome about Decred. It's never going to become obsolete. We're always going to be moving forward. We're always going to be tackling another issue. We're always going to be evolving and making changes. It's self-funding, so we're always going to have funds to pay for development work. We're never going to run into these issues where, hey, guys, we'd really like to do this, but it's just not in the cards right now. And, fortunately, the custodian of our development funds, Jake, he's actually a very frugal guy. People have asked, there's about $2 million US in our development account right now, which is quite amazing. We have enough funds to pay for almost anything that we could potentially, or possibly imagine. And moving forward, that's going to be instrumental to the evolution of the project and, the rapid pace of development that's going to ensue as soon as we kind of convert to a fully fledged decentralized autonomous organization. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and kind of pass this on to Dave. I know you guys had some really good questions come in for him, and we're, like I said earlier, we're very privileged to have him here today. He is very busy coding for this upcoming version 1 release, and it's just fantastic that he's kind of taken time out of his day to come by and hang out with us, and especially for our first episode, it really is an honor to have him on here. So without further ado, Dave, I'll let you take the floor.
All right. Well, thank you for the introduction. It was nice. So I guess I'll basically start kind of how I got started. You guys talked about how you got into Decred, so I figured I'll look at it from the other side. So essentially, as you guys may or may not know, I was the lead dev on the BTC Suite project, which is effectively an alternative implementation to Bitcoin Core. It has all of the Bitcoin primitives, and it's a full node. So effectively, it could completely replace Bitcoin Core if the community wanted to use it. It does everything that it does. So the main reason that we kind of got started on that, or that I got involved, was because we kind of saw early on that pretty much the biggest, what we saw anyway, we felt like the biggest attack on Bitcoin at the time was effectively that there really was only a single repository, a single implementation, and a single group of people that controlled it. And as much as they can say they don't, realistically, if you look at it, it simply is. That's the way it is. So we said that if you look at pretty much anything that's out there right now that has any kind of traction on a global scale, take a look at like the TCP/IP protocol for the internet. It's completely decentralized. There are multiple implementations. You have all these different stacks for Windows, every other operating system, pretty much anything. And so, we wanted to help push Bitcoin in that direction, where that we had another implementation. That we aren't the only implementation. Ultimately, there was going to be a whole lot of implementations, and that way, if you had a bug or an issue in one particular implementation, it only affects a very small portion of the network. The entire network keeps going. Well, so that was kind of our original plan. We wanted to basically contribute. We really like Bitcoin. We could see that the way that it was going to effectively revolutionize the way that the whole financial systems work. It's really great ideas behind the project, and so, but we wanted to help it out. So we went through the entire process of building that out. It took probably, I want to say, about a year before we actually had everything solid and working to the point that it could actually be a solid replacement. And then from there is kind of when we started getting into the reason that we started thinking about Decred, and it was effectively, it came down to governance. As you guys all know by now, is that we started to see that the reality is that we wanted to be able to participate. We put all this time and effort into creating an alternative implementation, but there was really no serious process for being able to offer improvements. There was the bit process. But realistically, just like you guys have seen now, you put that out there, and there's really nobody that makes the decision, so nothing ever happens. It's like it's kind of like the tragedy of the commons situation. Everybody knows that this may be good, but you got a few people over here that say no, a few people that say yes, and so you run into this situation that just no decision can be made. So we kind of saw that, and that's when we realistically started building out Decred. Personally, I'm extremely excited for the project, mainly because of the fact that having already been through and seen a lot of the governance issues that caused us to begin to build the project to begin with, we're basically, we believe we have a good system to deal with that. And so I figure I'll go into to start talking about that first. And so the first thing, one of the biggest things that we're releasing with 1.00 is sort of the primary purpose of Decred, really, and it's the ability to hard fork vote. The name might not be very good, but essentially what that is it's a coordinated upgrade of rule changes that are not backwards compatible. Because effectively, if you think about the way that all of these cryptocurrencies work, including Decred, you have a whole lot of nodes all out there, and they all have a very strict set of rules that they have to follow. And that really is what gives a lot of the value to the network, is because I know that nobody else can steal my coins because everybody else says they can. Right? And so you have this big consensus of agreement. But that poses the problem now. Okay, I want to change those rules. How do I do that? One, in a trustless and safe fashion, and two, in a decentralized fashion. And it's actually a pretty hard problem when you get technical, but the way that we've approached this and how it will affect most of the viewers today and their stakeholders is that what you'll get in the software now, when you go to buy a ticket, there's effectively going to be another section, and that section will be where you set your voting preferences. And so one of the first things that we're going to vote on in this 1.0 release is changing the ticket price algorithm. And as Daniel mentioned earlier, we are going to we're going to talk about that some more. It's super important, but we'll get into that. But I want to talk just about the process real quick. And I'm going to try to keep this, by the way, very high level. If anybody, you guys out there in the community, or Daniel or Tyler, if you have questions, I will be more than happy to dig in on it. But from a high level perspective, as I said, effectively the software now has a new section, and you set your voting preferences. In there, you'll be asked a simple question. Do you want to use the new, or do you want to enable the new algorithm, ticket price algorithm, or not? And so you have a drop down, and you say yes, no, or abstain, and then set preferences. And there will also be a choice about whether you want us developers to spend the effort that it's going to take to be able to implement Lightning Network. But that's just another choice, right? And so the idea is in your preferences, you'll say yes, no, whatever you want as a stakeholder. You set your preference, and that's it. And effectively, how it all happens behind the scenes is pretty complicated, like I said, but from the stakeholder perspective, seriously, that's all you do. You purchase your tickets, you set your preferences, and then every ticket, when it votes, will use those preferences. And now you can change those. I should note this too. This is important. You can change your preferences at any time. Obviously, you're not going to change the votes that you already made because you've already made the votes according to that preference. But any future tickets that vote will use those new preferences that you set. That really is sort of the high-level 1,000-yard view, and we think
Dave,
it's pretty easy.
If you don't mind me asking, how long are we actually going to be polling these votes? How long is that period?
Right. So once the voting begins, and again, like I said, I'm trying to stay high level here, but there is a period of upgrade. There's some things that has to happen before the voting actually begins. But once the period begins, it is a full voting interval, which is roughly a month.
Okay.
And the reasoning for that, by the way, from a technical perspective, is that whether you guys know or not, there's a target pool size. There's a certain number of tickets that constitutes the number of outstanding tickets that are part of the lottery. And so the idea is that it will do an entire pool. You'll be able to do one vote throughout the entire pool. We basically want to do an entire pool turnover in order to get a good sampling of votes to allow everybody to get their voice to be heard.
Yeah, so just basically the most accurate representation that we can possibly make of the Decred community and their preferences.
Correct.
Awesome.
So maybe we should bring this back a little bit and just explain the kind of basic dynamics of, I guess, Decred versus Bitcoin, because they're very similar. Decred is a fork of BTC Suite, which you guys built, and maybe it's worth talking about. Just kind of explaining like the proof of work, proof of stake system, and the value that adds to the network, and why these things are different. For all the newer users out there that have never staked, don't know what we're talking about.
It's a good point. All right, so in the Bitcoin world, or pretty much any proof of work coin, effectively the way that it works is you have a whole bunch of miners that are out there contributing computing power to solve a puzzle. And whenever they solve that puzzle, they get a reward. And basically what their whole intent is to include transactions that are out there on the network in an agreed upon order, so that everybody on the network, remember I mentioned before, you have all those nodes out there that are following the same rules. It's so that everybody agrees on what order those transactions happened in. Because without that, you could basically double spend or spend the same money twice. So there has to be some agreement amongst that. And so that's effectively what they're trying to do or trying to accomplish. The problem with that system is the fact that effectively you give all the power to those miners. And as you may or may not know, over time, that power has been centralized into the proof of work pools, because they're called ASICs, or application specific integrated circuit. Effectively, it's a dedicated machine that is custom built specifically to solve that problem. So it's way faster, and you have all that hash power centralized into a very small number of pools. And so that means that it's not the people who actually own or use the currency that get to make the decisions. It's the people that have the best hardware.
And the people that have a business built around mining the currency versus
correct, versus the people who are actually using or own the currency. And so our solution to that problem is that we effectively have added a second authentication. You could think of like a 2FA, two-factor authentication. We've added a second layer on top of it, and that's where this what we're calling proof of stake comes into play. But effectively what it does is every block requires the approval of the majority of the stakeholders that are selected during that particular block. There are 5 people that vote on each block that are randomly chosen amongst all the people that are voting, and 3 of those must say, yep, this is a good block, I agree with it. And the reason that solves the problem is because now I know a big question that comes up, and I'll speak to this real quick, is like, well, if you're going to change these rules in a hard fork or in a backwards incompatible fashion, what keeps the other chain from continuing on and creating like an Ethereum Classic situation? So the reason that is solved in Decred is because of the fact that when the majority of your stakeholders, these proof of work people are voting, they're only going to vote on one side, and they're going to vote no to the other side. So that means that because they're not getting that other old chain is not getting those votes, it can't continue. The stakeholders are completely saying, no, this chain is not good anymore. Too bad, right? So
it becomes economically inhibitive to continue to support that minority chain, right?
That is correct. I mean, if you really want to get technical, it is somewhat possible, but you'd have to spend 10 times as much money, and every block that you get behind, it becomes exponentially more. So just like in the, realistically in the Bitcoin space, people with more than 51% can do things that they shouldn't be able to. You could actually have a reorg that goes back 20 blocks. Theoretically, in practice, it's so astronomically low, such a astronomically low probability, it just won't happen. And so that's the same principle here, is that you would have to purposely mine at a humongous loss to try and keep that minority chain going. And why are miners going to do that? It's not in their best interest. It's not economically feasible.
They have better things to do, better ways to spend their money.
Yeah. And so, I guess if you were to compare it to trying to attack Bitcoin, it would be much more expensive.
Correct.
And even if, assuming the networks that were both at the same state they are now in terms of hash power.
Correct. Yeah, I wrote up some text about that, but effectively it is a lot more expensive to attack our current hybrid system than it is just in a pure proof of work coin. And effectively the reason for that is because you only need to buy the hardware in a pure proof of work coin, whereas in our system, you not only need to buy the hardware, but you also need to acquire a very large portion of the stake, which means that you own a whole bunch of the currency, and as you acquire that currency as well, you're going to end up causing the price to go up if you try to.
So I mean,
it's going to be very prohibitively expensive. Yeah,
very very difficult to pull off, right? So.
And you might not want to attack the network at that point.
Right. I mean, at that point, if you've got, $2 billion of your own money, do you really want to kill it?
Right.
Maybe not. So, right. And that's kind of it.
So you mentioned earlier, Dave, that on the version 1 release, we're going to be voting on a new SDIF algorithm. Would you mind talking about that for a little bit and, kind of explaining why you think that, a new algorithm is even necessary?
Sure. So I guess first we probably should talk real quickly, briefly about what it does and what its purpose is. Is that when
an SDIF for anybody out there means staking difficulty.
Right. And so typically we refer to this as the ticket price because it's a little easier to understand. But the whole voting system that we've been talking about, the proof of stake, the two-factor authentication, relies on the fact that people are locking up their coins in exchange for voting rights to basically participate in this voting, and to get a reward on that. So in order to calculate what your expected reward is, there needs to be a period. And I'm sure that pretty much anybody, when you first got started, your question is okay, well, how long before I vote, right? And so that answer is very much directly tied into how many tickets are in the pool. Without getting too technical in it, effectively what happens is that if the number of outstanding tickets rises too high, then the actual period that it takes you to vote will increase, and therefore it's going to lower your yield, and it also increases the chances that your ticket will expire without voting. So the core concept is that the pool size is really more important than the ticket price as far as being able to predictably know what your return is going to be and whether or not you want to pay a certain price for it. So that's effectively the goal or the requirement of the ticket price or the stake difficulty algorithm, is to maintain that pool size. And so the current one on mainnet, the reason that we're putting a vote up to change this is because the current one on mainnet does do a pretty good job of keeping the pool size where it's supposed to be, which is fantastic. However, in doing so, it's also created another situation where I'm sure that anybody who has participated knows the price is basically jumping around in these huge surges and ebbs that causes it to the point where it gets so expensive that nobody will buy tickets in one round. And then during the next one, the price drops way down to the point that everybody wants to buy tickets because they're super cheap and your yield is going to be very high. And so you have the situation where you can think of it like you've got these little this big section like this, and it's cut into slices, and everybody buys in this slice, and then nobody buys, and everybody buys in the next slice, and it just repeats itself, and it's created this resonant cycle. And so the reason why that matters so much is that because of that behavior that has emerged as a result of that, you have the, I guess I should talk about the next thing, is that in order for your ticket to be mined, you have to pay a fee. The miners, when they choose which tickets they're going to include in a block, they base that upon how expensive or how cheap, basically how much fee it pays, because they want to get paid as much as they possibly can, so they're going to choose the highest fees. Well, when everybody is fighting over a limited number of tickets that can be bought in that slice that I've been talking about, that low window or the low interval where the price is low, it causes the fees to skyrocket. And that has a lot of negative impacts as well. Not only on you as a stakeholder, it reduces the yield that you're going to earn because you're paying these high fees. It also creates a perverse incentive for the miners to stockpile their hash power. How can I explain this? Let me say it this way. You basically, during these low windows, the POW miners, proof of work miners, have caught on to the fact that they're going to make a lot of fees during that period. So everybody turns their miners on and directs their hash power at the network during that period, which in turn causes the blocks to get produced faster than they should be. And then after the window, they all turn their hash power off, which elongates the period. And now, instead of your average transaction time being, say, less than 5 minutes, it may be 10 or 15 minutes until the next difficulty adjustment. It's not a huge issue yet, but you can imagine in the future when it's used a whole lot more, transaction times tripling because of this perverse incentive is not desirable. So effectively what we've done for the 1.0 release is we're including a new algorithm that keeps the same goal. It aims to keep the pool size that I talked about the same, so everybody can predictably know what their yield is going to be. But it also smooths the ticket price changes so that it encourages what we're calling good price exploration. But think of it in terms like it encourages the ticket purchases to be spread out across every block as opposed to all being piled into that one small period. And as a result, it will discourage fee wars. You as a stakeholder will earn higher yield. You'll have less hassle. I don't know if the people that have probably tried to purchase tickets, you can imagine right now, as we get a lot of questions, is like, I tried to purchase a ticket and it said it got purchased, but then it disappeared. And what happened? And so the reason is that your ticket got included. You made your purchase. You sent it out to the network, but the miner said, you're not paying as much as the next guy, so I'm taking his ticket over yours. And then your ticket never gets selected.
It's kind of just like the transaction fee war that we're seeing in Bitcoin. If you're not paying really high transaction fees, then your transaction is not going to get included in a block.
That's exactly it. And so effectively, that is we think it's extremely important to change the SDIF algorithm or the ticket price algorithm, because the fact that it's better pretty much in every way for the network, for the yield, for the problem that I discussed about the stockpiling or the dogpiling of the hash power. It solves a lot of issues with the current algorithm.
And
So-
not only that, and you may have briefly touched on this, but also people that stake coins are holders of the currency. They're going to keep these coins in the ecosystem. And I think Matt, or I think Tyler discussed this a little bit the last episode. But yeah, I know. But basically, when you have these high fees, and as Dave spoke of, the hash power always spikes, and that's because these miners are getting competitive over the higher fees. And the reason they're doing this is because they want as big of a piece of the pie as possible. They have electricity bills to pay. Mining is a for-profit business for a lot of people. So by kind of adjusting these algorithms, we're going to reduce sell pressure on the market as well. So whether you are somebody who is a trader or a holder, or it doesn't matter who you are. This is actually going to be beneficial for everyone, and it definitely has positive influences on every aspect of the project and the network.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, so a lot of people might not realize, but some of these fee wars have become so high that I think the block size has doubled for like for a proof of work miner. The block, or sorry, not block size, but the block reward like doubled. So I mean, we're just it's basically like increasing the amount of inflation that we're seeing in a way, versus people who are staking, many of which continue to just reinvest all of it over and over.
It does end up
those gains.
It does end up actually averaging out, because it does speed up the emission rate during the period, but then it slows down over the others, and that actually, so if you look at the average block time, it's still around 5 minutes, but it still creates that perverse incentive, like I said, where if you're actually trying to use the currency, it becomes an issue, because you go from, hey, my transactions are confirming in 1 minute, now they're taking 30, right? So, right, that's a big thing that we want to avoid.
So I think we can move on to I guess a question. I'm just watching the chat now. So somebody wanted to know, did you simulate the ticket price pool sizes with the new algorithm? And I guess people are would like to know a little bit about the algorithm that you've been working on.
Sure. Are we just blindly charging into this, or has there been a lot of testing done? What
right.
Are your
so
thoughts on that?
If there's actually a GitHub issue that probably in the link to the show, we can probably place it if you like. But we have developed the simulator, and it has actually more than one what we're calling demand distribution functions. But you can think of it in terms of it simulates the expected buying behavior of stakeholders, because stakeholders are generally rational people. So it tries to. So the simulator actually does. Effectively, it focuses on three different things. One, it focuses on the worst case scenario, first of all, in that it purposely treats all of the coins as one large entity that is conspiring to manipulate the price, which obviously isn't very realistic, because of the fact that typically in the real network, all the coins are split between multiple people, and they're all going to act in their best interest. But still, from to answer the question is, are we modeling it? Are we checking what the results are going to be? Yes, we've modeled it under the worst possible scenario and underneath the expected scenarios as well. We've had graphs. There have been multiple proposals from the community. Actually, I think we're up to, I want to say 8 proposals now.
Wow.
Each one is individually analyzed, not only with the simulator, but we actually look at it and deconstruct it from a mathematical perspective, and to look at, okay, well, how could we attack this? What are the resonance cycles? Effectively. But yes. So, short answer, yes. We've definitely spent a very large amount of time modeling, simulating, and everything is public. And before we actually do this release, there is going to be a technical. We're calling them Decred change proposals, but there is going to be a technical document created that has all of the details. In fact, the details are already on the issue, but we're going to create a little more user-facing document that is a little less technical, that describes all of this and shows the results.
And that's DCPs or Decred change proposals, I guess, will essentially be like BIPs.
Correct. Yes, but a little bit different. But that's the idea. Yes.
Gotcha.
All right. So, Tyler, did you want to take a look at some of the community questions we got in? At this point, I know a lot of people wanted to know if Dave was wearing pants for the interview.
Actually, yeah. Just before I came on the show.
Decred now has proof of pants, which is something we're very excited about. Let's see.
Yeah,
here.
so maybe one of us should share their screen.
Yeah, we could do that. I think my video is pretty crap from what I'm seeing, so I'm likely our next episode will be.
While you're looking at those questions, I did want to mention one other thing, and that is that another thing that we're actually going to be doing in the next release that we've discussed is that we're going to lower the minimum transaction fee. One of the
maybe that's good.
I'll just touch on that while you guys are getting set up. So the issue there is that when we very first launched the coin, of course, we set the fee to an amount that effectively made it where it was roughly a penny per kilobyte of a fee rate for the transactions. Of course, as the exchange rate has risen, that is now effectively is 10 times more at the current time. So the issue is that some of you may know we've been getting questions like, why are the transactions so expensive? And so, we're going to address that by lowering the fee. Although I do want to say one thing here is that, you might be questioning like, well, why aren't we going to vote on that? And the reason is that actually already today, everybody has the ability to do this. The software has a flag that you can set so that each individual person can say, I want the minimum fee that I particularly allow on my node, and I want to relay to the rest of the network to be a certain amount. However, we also know that in reality, most people don't play with those flags. they leave them at the defaults. So by lowering it, it increases the chances that those transactions will be able to relay. But I do point it out is that I can say that I personally, and I know most of the other people feel this way too, is that ultimately these type of decisions, we're going to have a proposal system that is not on chain, but is tied to the chain that allows people to give their opinion on that too, is because as a developer, I do not want to be setting economic policy, and none of the other ones do either, right? That's not our, our goal is to make technically sound code that provides value to the network, not tell you how you need to use it.
Yeah, and maybe you could touch on this. Because I know you and I have talked privately about some stuff with the voting system, and it sounds like there's going to be kind of like two layers of voting, where one will be more of like a change to the actual protocol, and then another layer of voting could potentially be how the community wants to distribute funds for the DAO, or these different. So maybe you could talk on something about that.
I'll say a quick thing. I can't really say too much because we generally like to not really talk too much about exactly how we're going to do things until it's already working, and then we can say, here it is. But effectively, the general principle is that as you guys will see, the on-chain voting takes a while to complete, right? It's pretty much as I said, it takes about a month because it has to go through the entire pool, and then you have a lock-in period. There's a few other technical things, but it takes a while. And the idea that every tiny little decision that is going to be made in Decred gets carried out directly on chain is not very scalable. I mean, you guys might be able to imagine. Could you imagine if there's we're going to have a month-long vote on whether or not we should spend X number of dollars to fund development of integration into some third-party server, right? It's not feasible, right? So the principle is that we're ultimately going to have a second layer that is tied into the chain. It's cryptographically pegged to the chain, which means that you as a ticket holder or as a stakeholder have the exact same privileges to use this system or the voting rights to use the system as you would the on-chain one. However, it effectively will move all that off-chain, and then the result of that vote will be recorded on-chain. So it's still transparent. It's just that rather than putting all that data on the chain forever and making everybody deal with it, non-protocol upgrade type of proposals and changes and things that need to be voted on will be done off chain. But like I said,
that really is incredible. And that way, like you said, we can ensure rapid progress in areas where, that's appropriate, and, like consensus, protocol changes we can spend time on. Awesome.
Right.
Okay, cool.
You guys ready for your questions?
Yeah, I guess we had a few questions. I guess a lot of people have actually asked this. Before, you've mentioned, as ticket prices become more expensive, and also the price of Decred itself becomes more expensive, what are some of the things that we actually can do to ease the burden and, still make smaller holders feel like that they have a say in the project and enable them to participate?
Right. So on the in the rules, it's not exposed in the software, so you won't actually see this anywhere. However, at a fundamental level in the rules that everybody agrees to, there actually already is the ability built in to split the ticket purchase 32 ways, which means that, you know, you can effectively, you could group up with 32 different people and pool your funds, and this is all done trustlessly. It means that, you know, you don't have to like send your funds to somebody and say, hey, don't steal my stuff, please. No, it's actually on a protocol level, it actually enforces that everybody proportionally gets the same reward as to what they put in. And like I said, everybody agrees on the network. All these rules are in place to ensure that that can be done in a trustless fashion. It is, like I said, it's not exposed in the software, and in order to expose it, there's, you know, some work as far as you have discovery, like how do I choose the same people who want to vote the same way I do. And so there are some technical things that need to be handled there, but it has been thought of, and it is on the agenda. Like we know that is ultimately going to be something that has to happen, and there is a mechanism in place to deal with it.
Awesome.
Somebody wanted to know about puzzles.
That's probably you, Matt.
Yeah. So will puzzles become scheduled? I don't know. I think they just kind of happen at a whim when I don't know. Maybe DBT could speak to this more.
You can't push an artist, you know. Like,
Exactly.
the inspiration is divine. You know, you have to let it come. And you know, I, for one, I'm very, you know, I feel very fortunate and proud to have your wife, you know, coin artist on the team. She does a lot for the project, and you know, she really is an asset here. And I think she brings a level of interaction to this community that we really don't see anywhere else. When we all kind of come together, and to be honest with you guys, I don't even try to solve these puzzles. I mean, they're beyond me. Like, you know, I understand they're beyond a lot of people. But I think it's really cool. You know, I still remember when she suggested doing that first puzzle, I kind of thought she was nuts, and I was like, okay, you know, like, well, we'll go along with this. And, you know, the next thing we knew, like an hour later, we had 100 new people in our Slack. Everybody was talking about Decred. You know, everybody was talking about the puzzles, and it was a really unique, cool community building exercise. And not only that, but I feel like, you know, a lot of people really enjoyed, you know, talking about it, looking at the solution, and, you know, running through the steps. And, you know, I think something that we've discussed moving forward is, you know, having puzzles of varying difficulty levels. You know, some that are more similar to the first puzzles that we had, to where, you know, kind of more of your average users can solve. And I mean, some of these solutions to the more recent puzzles are just unfathomable to me, you know. And, you know, I'm not like a genius like Dave or anything, you know, but I'm not an idiot either. So it really would be cool to I feel like just kind of having these puzzles keep coming ninja style. And like Dave said, you know, that's kind of always been the style of the Decred team. You know, we don't want to sit here and, you know, talk about a bunch of stuff and, you know, build it up and then release it and have you disappointed in it. You know, I really love how these guys just build the most amazing software they possibly can build, you know, really pour their blood, sweat, and tears into this. And all of a sudden it's just happening. It's live, and, you know, we all have it there to use. And I feel like that really is incredible. You know, you don't need to hype what's going on so much, although a little of it is nice. It sells itself, you know, and it hypes itself. And, you know, these guys are working on a non-technology that's supposed to be amazing. And, you know, we don't know anything about it, but, you know, as Jake said in several interviews, if we did, it wouldn't be a massacre. So I think as time progresses, you know, having anything like a puzzle or anything like that on a schedule is silly just because of that. You know, I think it's cool to kind of keep that magic in the air and that element of surprise that we've all come to love, you know, for Decred. I really enjoy it. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm really excited. You know, I guess from a dev perspective, it's really great to see everything that's going on as well. You know, I think a lot of times what I see, just to give a little more credit to everybody else too, is I certainly appreciate and sort of the rest of the devs the credit that we get. But at the same time, I mean, you know, just deving doesn't do anything. I mean, we've got a lot of contributors across all kinds of things. I mean, you know, you got marketing, documentation, probably community outreach. We have people working on third-party integrations. We've got translation. We've got you know, people that are you know, wallets, exchanges, e-commerce. Like there's all kinds of stuff that's going on simultaneously, and all of this stuff is very important to the entire ecosystem. So, you know, I personally want to, you know, give my gratitude to everybody else that's participating as well, because dev is good and all, but it's just one piece.
Yeah, and this wouldn't be possible without everybody contributing. And I mean, this involves Decred contractors, this involves the dev team, this involves the community. Without the community, this project wouldn't be half of what it is today. So, we're all very thankful that you've all come together to show your support for the project. And you're all here to kind of root for this dev team. These guys are the underdogs, and Gred's always kind of been a dark horse. It's something that people are scared of, just because the technology is disruptive, and the implications of this technology could change the blockchain space forever. So, I, for one, as I've said multiple times, I'm very excited to be here and very excited for the future of Decred. I think we're going to go places that nobody could fathom we could go, and I think it's going to happen faster than anyone realizes.
Yeah, I mean, not many people realize this, but our Slack channel, I remember it in the early days, you would ask a question and it would just be
crickets, man.
And you're just like, shit, man. But
crickets, right?
Seriously. And then, I think you guys were primarily on IRC at the time. So, it'd just be these bots talking back to you. You're like,
I actually remember this one time that somebody was so impressed with the bots that we had in our Slack, because it said bots by the name.
And we commit to it.
Yeah. Yeah, they thought that we were working on this bleeding edge AI, and you gotta have a little fun. You gotta have a little fun every now and then. I've really enjoyed getting to hang out with all of you guys, and I've had a lot of private conversations with a lot of people in this community, and there's a lot of good ideas here. And hey, we love Brazil too. By the way, shout out to our Brazilian community. You guys have been incredible. It's really cool seeing somebody, and it's really not across the world, but it kind of is. Your community is so strong, and you guys have shown so much support for the Decred community, and it really is much appreciated. We appreciate everybody, of course, but Viva la Brazil. You guys have been great.
For sure.
So somebody has a question. When are smart contracts coming? The smart contracts are, obviously something that a lot of people talk about. Right. A lot of people like to discuss in the space, and I don't know. When do you see this technology coming to Decred, or is it already available?
Right. So I actually see. I'll think about how to answer this one. So the reality is that Decred already has smart contracts. And the reason is that a smart contract, when you get right down to it, is really nothing more than using a scripting system, a programming language, whatever you have under the hood, to enable some desirable behavior. So I think the issue is that, smart contracts is sort of like this big hyped up buzzword right now. And a lot of people think that, for lack of a better way to say it, oh my God, smart contracts, we're going to the moon, right? It's like, well, the reality is that a smart contract in and of itself isn't particularly useful. What makes smart contracts useful really is whatever it is that they specifically do. There has, for example, this is actually another thing that I mentioned earlier that we're going to vote on. So let's take Lightning. So Lightning is an excellent implementation of a smart contract. Now, you'll notice that you don't really need to have a specific special system under the hood. I mean, Bitcoin can do Lightning Network, right? If SegWit were to get activated. Ethereum could potentially do it. Decred can certainly do it. So the point is that it isn't so much that you need some special smart contracting system. It's the reality is that what makes a smart contract useful is that it does something beneficial, and that there is an entire ecosystem built around it. So when we talk about Lightning Network, for example, if we're going to enable it, if you don't have wallets that can make use of it, if you don't have exchanges that are willing to work with it, if you don't have any of these other pieces that are required to actually make use of this layer 2 technology, it's useless. Right? I mean, so what if the technology technically can do it? You need the ability to make use of it. And so when we talk about smart contracts, Decred actually can already do smart contracts. In fact, we actually expanded the underlying scripting language that is at the core of the consensus rules in Decred, specifically to enable a lot of new opcodes that allow some of this functionality, this more more intelligent functionality and the ability to do things like, HLT. Well, I don't want to go too technical, but the ability to actually, the ability to do novel and unique things via smart contracts. So from that regard, like I said, it already is capable of doing it. Now, I think maybe what the question is Decred going to invent some of these new and novel smart contract applications? And, potentially, it really kind of depends on the community. The community is a big driver in Decred. I mean, if they want to go a certain direction and that's where the vote takes us, then that's where we'll go.
Yeah. Well, in regards to smart contracts too, I feel like in a lot of ways, smart contracts, at least right now, are a solution looking for a problem. I think there's a lot of people are like, oh, smart contracts, buzzword. I'm going to go build my whole business on smart contracts and I'm going to do it on Ethereum or whatever. But, a lot of this can also be built with multi-sig on Bitcoin, a lot of the basic stuff.
Correct. So, especially when you have the ability to chain transactions and things. So, yeah, I agree with you. And like I said, I mean, I don't want, when I speak, I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying that smart contracts suck. No, that's not at all what I'm saying. They are excellent and they enable a lot of great things. I just think that from what I've observed anyway, a lot of people just see it as a buzzword and see it as something it's not, right? So
speaking of Lightning Network, I actually read a blog post, I believe it was released early January, where the Lightning Network development team said that their favorite Bitcoin library was BTC Suite.
Correct.
Which I thought was pretty cool, to have them come out and say that, you guys had to feel pretty honored.
Yeah, it's very nice. We actually work with them. We've worked with them for a while now. Some of the Lightning devs. In fact, one of their devs has contributed quite a lot of code to BTC Suite as well. So we do have a good working relationship with them, and yeah, it's a great team. Really group of intelligent folks as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And let's say that, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, but let's say that, the community does decide to vote on the Lightning Network, and we want you guys to begin work on it. How long do you think that work will take? And, when do you think we'll be voting on actually, pushing this update live?
Well, we definitely have it on the roadmap.
Rough estimate. I mean, I know it's hard.
It's probably like, there's always technical things. I mean, my guess is that probably after the vote says that, we're going to start working on it, I would probably guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 months. And we actually have a lot of the primitives and everything necessary. A lot of people, are always asking about SegWit and everything. Decred already has SegWit. It's not really SegWit, but the fundamental thing that SegWit enables, what makes it necessary, why everybody wants it for Lightning, is the ability to have non-malleable transactions, and Decred already has that. So, we do have the. It's not SegWit per se, but it's really what the important part of SegWit is. So, yeah. So I would say probably 3 months.
Cool.
Someone from the chat, I thought, had a good question. Is it an accurate statement that proof of work miners that control X% of the hashing power get an effective X% discount on proof of stake tickets due to the probability of the proof of work miner mining their own ticket fee? If so, is this a problem?
It is somewhat possible, obviously, but of course you have to keep in mind here that in order for that to be the case, you would have to have a whole lot of the hash power, right? Each individual proof of work miner would have to have that. If you're mining, most people mine in a pool, proof of work pool, and so the pool itself has no incentive to choose the individual participants' tickets over any other ticket. So they're not going to be making, typically, I mean, of course you have some collusion situations, but in an actual honest system, which for the most part it is, you're not going to have a pool favoring any individual's tickets except maybe their own, but there's only going to be a certain amount of that. So there is a certain, yes, that is possible, but I don't think it's as big of an issue as it might sound because of that fact. Now, in the other, I guess, way to look at it is the fact too, is that if that starts to happen too much, the other stakeholders can actually notice that this is going on and start to vote against that particular blocks that exhibit this behavior, and they can start to vote no. And as they do that, the proof of work miner is obviously going to stop pretty quickly when their blocks start making anything, because they start to get shot down. So the ability to react to and handle the situation is technically possible.
Gotcha. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Another question for the dev team, for the Decred core team. How is the end user going to use Decred? What's the vision for the Decred core team to push the usage of Decred? So I'm sure DBT probably might want to speak to this.
Go right ahead.
Well, everybody always wants to ask, how will Decred be used? But, it's very important to keep in mind that, this technology is still in very much a beta, or even, some would say alpha phase of development. And how will Decred be used will be determined by its users. We will identify use cases as time progresses, and, in whatever direction we decide to push this project, we will be able to identify use cases. So right now, use cases are speculation. We're on coinpayments.net now, thanks to a couple community members. Charlie Lee was one of them that kind of helped push that vote through. Is pretty funny. Other coins have been trying to get the vote passed for a while, and ours got passed, pushed through in about 30 minutes. So it was really cool to see the community come together for that, and go ahead and make that happen for the Decred community. But it's use cases are something that that come with time, and Decred's still such a young project, and we're finally, with the version 1 release, getting what essentially we've all been waiting for, and this entire time. It's the whole reason why we're all here. It's the ability to vote. It's the ability to have a say. So that's why the version 1 release is so important, and we're so excited about it, is because of course, Decred's been in development for many years. I mean, BTC Suite has been under development for what, 5 years, Dave, or 4?
Probably. Well, about 3. Yeah.
About 3. Still, it's a long time. People don't understand how much work has actually gone into Decred. So just to see kind of all of these things coming together, that's what version 1's all about. Version 1 is the beginning of Decred. It is the real beginning. It is the beginning of Decred's evolution. So you can kind of think about, it's kind of lame to use like the whole, caterpillar butterfly analogy, but it's Decred's been the caterpillar so far. We've gone into the chrysalis. We've been metamorphosizing into this new technology, and we're finally about to emerge as a butterfly, and we can fly in whatever direction we like, which is just fantastic. We don't have to just continue to cling to the branches and eat the leaves anymore. So
I can see the GIFs blowing up on the Slack channel right now.
Yeah, what have I done? What have I done? But it's really exciting for me. And I know Dave and all these guys, they've been working so hard towards this one moment in time, and it really is monumental, and they really do deserve a big round of applause for the work they've done. I mean, this isn't just a big deal for Decred. This is a big deal for cryptocurrency in general, and I think people might underestimate the magnitude of what's actually being done here. But when I think Decred happened at the perfect time. The amount of foresight that the development team had. They saw governance issues in Bitcoin before other people even realized that they would be an issue. And it just so happened, talk about right time, right place, that Decred showed up with an innovative solution problem at the time where governance issues were causing the most trouble, at least in the public spotlight. There is no end to this whole SegWit situation insight. And every day I read new FUD on Reddit, or something just absolutely freaking ridiculous on Twitter, and it's so exciting to see and know that Decred won't have these problems. And I think Dave was talking to us about this before the show. Is that while the vote might not always go how you want it to go, right, we're at least making progress.
We're gonna move forward, yeah.
And that pace of evolution is going to be rapid. So I could see, potentially a year from now, Decred being something, completely completely different than what it is now. I mean, there's no telling what advancements will have been made. Maybe we are the go-to, a non-coin. Maybe we are the go-to marketplace, digital marketplace. I mean, who knows? This is up to us, and that's why I'm so excited to be here, and I think you should be as well. As groundwork has been laid, the foundation has been laid, and it's time to get it done. It's time to push this forward and, come together as a community and make these decisions and figure out what Decred is going to be.
Yeah. And David, maybe you can follow up and just did you guys have an original vision with Decred, or was your vision just to let the community be in control of the vision?
Yeah, I mean, our primary goal when we launched this is basically to solve, or at least in our estimation, to solve what the governance issue, and because probably I should touch on this a little bit. I don't think it gets talked about a lot, but I have noticed that there is I'm going to say this in the wrong way, but perhaps there's a bit of hubris involved a lot in the cryptocurrency space, where everybody says, like, my idea is the greatest, or my coin is the greatest. I solved everything. And, the reality is that I'm a bit more of a pragmatist, right? I don't believe for a second that we got everything right. I don't believe that any coin out there has everything right yet, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, I mean, pick your poison, right? None of the coins have everything perfect. So one of the key things is that, you need to be able to course correct. You need to be able to, when a situation arises or something happens, or just a brand new idea comes along. I mean, 5 years from now, 2 years from now, whatever the case is, a new fantastic idea that is just absolutely mind-blowing comes along. And if your coin does not have an infrastructure, does not have the governance capability to pick up those changes, to implement those changes, and then allow the stakeholders to choose whether they want to go that direction or not in a decentralized fashion, your coin's probably going to, either just limp along or die. So
it's survival of the fittest. You evolve or die, right? I mean,
and so
harsh way to put it, but yeah.
So I mean, my personal vision on it is exactly that. Is that did we get everything absolutely perfectly right? No, I don't believe we did. Now, I don't know exactly what's wrong necessarily per se, but I mean, that's just it, right? Anybody who tells you that they actually know for sure that their system can't possibly ever have a problem in it, they're probably not telling you the truth, or they're delusional. Let's put it that way.
and with so many investors and people invested in the project around the world, I mean, is it fair to have the dictatorship too, to just be like, well, we're going to do this, and that's the way it's going to be? And
right. Yeah, I think that one of the personally is this is something that I noticed really in Bitcoin as well, is that if I have a lot of Bitcoin and I'm a big holder in it, specifically, I think it comes down to big businesses too. It's a big thing there. Is like I mentioned at the beginning, if I'm actually using Bitcoin and it's part of my business model and I rely on it, I would like to have at least some decent influence. I mean, I shouldn't get to be a dictator, but I definitely think I should have a reasonable set of influence towards the direction of the coin, specifically if you want to change it and your change is going to kill my business, right? If whatever that change is would cause my business to no longer be viable, I'd like to have a little bit of influence to try and prevent that from happening, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that really the community governance is the key.
Yeah, and I think if you, a lot of people overlook this problem, but I think if you get that right, it just opens up a world of possibilities for the future.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
So, okay, somebody asks, are there any plans to support watch-only DCR addresses in Prometheus, plus export, sign, import of transactions from secure offline PC in the near future?
So I know that the underlying CLI software that Prometheus relies on actually does have the capability to do watching only. I don't know because I don't directly work on the wallet. I actually don't know if it's specifically on there. I know that it is possible. I really can't say if it's on the roadmap or not. I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
However, I will say this though, for me personally, is that I'm a huge security nut, and that is definitely something that I personally would like to see more effort put into, in the ability to make it easier to set up offline signing. I have mine set up that way, and it's definitely a chore to get it set up that way. I am aware of that. So, I mean, I would like to see that. I don't know that there is a specific plan at the moment, though.
Crypto Graffiti, one of our new community members, he's got a good question. Can you please speak to your individual motivations for participating in the Decred project? Like, I don't know, is there anything internally motivating you that drew you to want to work on Decred versus working on other projects versus wanting to be more of a core contributor on Bitcoin or
Right.
Yeah, because obviously, Dave, I mean, you could do anything. You could work for any project. I mean, anybody would be happy to have you. So
well,
why Decred?
Well, mainly it all comes down to that governance. I think that I personally believe that once you open that door, you basically open the door to work on anything. I mean, if some other, like I said before, if some other idea comes up, or if I have a great idea, whatever the case is that we're not actually set in stone. And I guess to put it to a little more high level, one of the things I actually don't like about Bitcoin, and I'll put it very bluntly, is that I don't like the fact that the status quo, so to speak, is that you can never change Bitcoin. It's like Bitcoin is just perfect the way it is, and we should never change it. There's this argument of moral hazard. There's all these things that go on, but to me, it's like as I said before, the reality is that Bitcoin has some really great concepts behind it. However, it messed some things up too, and I think that anybody who's looking at it from a realistic perspective would agree to that statement, that it didn't get everything perfect, right? That there's a lot of great things, fantastic, but didn't get everything perfect. So for me, I think that the main reason that I really enjoy Decred is the fact that I know that by having this ability that we can fix any issues that come up, that we can really make it anything we want it to be as a community. And so, if that effectively, it means I'm not going to be just stuck working on it and trying to shoehorn in changes to an existing system and being limited to this, oh, well, I got to try and do it in such a way that some guy who started running the software 35 years ago, it's like, to me, that just doesn't seem very feasible long term. I mean, I certainly understand the arguments and everything. I just think the reality is that at some point you have to bite the bullet and you have to say, look, you've got to upgrade.
I mean, well, people hate this analogy, and you've all heard it 100 times, but when you look at the .com bubble, and you look at the 90s, and you see, I remember getting those little plastic CDs in the mail from America Online, right? Everybody got them. They were fantastic frisbees. America Online did not adapt. They were the largest internet company, arguably, of the age, and they didn't change. They didn't evolve. They didn't move forward. They thought that they knew all the answers. They thought that they were doing everything right. And then you had other companies come along, and those companies are now the internet giants of our era. So personally, that's where I really see, Decred fitting in, and I know, if you had said that about America Online back then, that they're not going to make it, they're going to fail. I mean, people would have laughed at you, they were the kings. But, when you look at the current situation with Bitcoin, and try to be realistic about it, at least from my perspective, is, they've got to learn how to get along. They have to learn how to govern. They have to learn how to evolve, or they're not going to exist for much longer, and at least exist as an investment grade asset, in my opinion. Of course, the beauty of the blockchain is, of course, it will likely always be around, as long as somebody's running the software. But that's what makes me really excited about Decred is, you've got a situation where people are just starting to realize that maybe Bitcoin has, a few of these issues that we can address, and then you've got Decred coming in to solve the issues and kind of pave the way for a blockchain 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever you want to call it revolution. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think Bitcoin is going to go away. I think it has too large of a network effect and a ton of money behind it. But I think everybody sees the growing pains that it's going through. So
yeah,
it's definitely growing pains. But here's the thing: is it's not like Decred has to be pitted against Bitcoin. And that's a common misconception. And I still remember, when I started getting into cryptocurrency, all the newest coins, is this the next Bitcoin, which is what always, people used to say. People don't say that anymore, but the reality is that there's never a next Bitcoin, and you don't want to be the next Bitcoin. You want to be the next Decred. You want to be unique in your own sense, and you want to fill your own niche. And with Bitcoin, I agree with Dave. It will always be around, and that's the beauty of the blockchain. But just as me personally, as a speculator, I think Bitcoin's going to make it. I think that they're going to get over the growing pains. But it's exciting to see governance solutions being developed. And Dave, if Bitcoin wanted to, how difficult would it be for them to adopt a governance model like Decred at this point in time?
I mean, so it would be possible, but the first thing that they would have to let go of is the no hard fork rule, right? That's because implementing it would definitely require some pretty massive changes. We know.
Well, and it would probably really change the way Bitcoin even functions at its core right now, and what users have grown accustomed to.
Yeah, I mean, from a pure technical perspective, which I imagine is what we're talking about here.
Right.
I mean, it certainly could be done, but from a more practical standpoint, I don't ever see it. I mean, it's too much of a change. I mean, we obviously, there are problems deciding on something as small as bumping the block size. I mean, imagine trying to, we're going to introduce a brand new voting system where there's tickets and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, that would take some time.
Yeah. And so somebody kind of brings up a good question, and maybe you could speak to this, Dave, but he's talking about, let's say somebody comes out with Blake 256 ASICs, and the community wants to vote on whether or not we want to change our proof of work algorithm that we're using.
Right.
Is this something that is, that could be changed on the network? Is that possible? How malleable is Decred, I guess?
Yeah, so that is definitely possible to change the proof of work algorithm. I will say, though, since we're on this topic, I do not see ASICs as a bad thing. In fact, I think they're a very good thing, and I'll explain real quickly why that is because as long as you don't have an ASIC, all it would take is one intelligent person with a decent amount of money to create an ASIC that will completely dominate and own the network. I don't know if you guys are too familiar about the hashing rates, but let's take the fact that a single Antminer S9 has more hashing power than, I want to say, 4,000, I believe. I would have to go look at the math, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a very large number of GPUs, that you need to just combat one ASIC. And in fact, not until pretty recently, I would say 3 months or 4 months ago, you could literally have more hash power than the entire Decred network with a single ASIC. So the problem there is that until you have ASICs, you actually have a very, an attack vector that somebody could exploit. Now, the one good thing that isn't quite as much of a problem is, remember, Decred is not a pure proof of work coin. So even if you have a very large portion of the hash power, it isn't anywhere near as of a problem as it is in a pure proof of work coin. And the reason is because that second factor authentication of the stakeholders. You can't do things like mine in secret because you need votes. And so if you were to try to create an entire chain in secret, you can't do it because you need the vote. Every block requires votes from the randomly selected voters. So you need to publish that block in order to garner those votes. And then once the block has been published, everybody else is going to jump on board and start mining on top of that block. So, it doesn't have the same attack characteristics or downsides as a pure proof of work coin. But nevertheless, you still don't want a single actor to have a very large amount of hash power, because it does open up going back to the question earlier that somebody had mentioned about, the potential of including your own tickets that are at lower fees. If you have more hash power than the entire network, now you are incentivized to do that, right? There's no, unlike a pool where you'd have a hard time convincing the owner to, favor your specific tickets over anybody else's. If you are the pool, if you have more hash power than the whole network, you can start to do things like that. Like I said, it isn't as bad, right? But it's still not ideal. And so I don't think that ASICs are anywhere near the problem that they're often made out to be. In fact, I think that gaining them would be a good thing. All that aside,
Plus-
though, yes, if the community were to vote on it, it could happen.
Could be done. And you know, just to speak to the ASIC thing again, you also have people that are vested in mining your currency.
Correct.
So you know,
you have to have kind of a mutual respect, you know, for the miners and also the proof of stake people. I mean, they both do a part in securing the network. So
Right.
You don't want to just completely say, you know, screw you guys to the miners either. I mean, it's something like changing the mining algorithm is.
My personal feeling is that you would have a very hard time convincing the majority of stakeholders to change the proof of work algorithms precisely because of that. Like, I mean, think about it from the other side of it. You may not like the fact that there are ASICs, but if somebody's spent a lot of money to set up their ASICs farms, is it fair to say, you know, give them a big, you know, well, too bad, right? So I mean, you have to look at it from all perspectives, right?
Yeah, and versus GPUs or CPUs or whatever, you know, they can't just point those miners at anything now.
Correct.
Now they're specifically pretty much geared for just mining Blake 256.
Exactly.
So, which I think Decred is probably the biggest coin that uses that algorithm. I can't speak to that officially, but
there's other coins,
especially the 14 round, right?
Blake as well. But yeah, I think Decred's the only one that uses 14 round, to my knowledge.
Okay,
I believe so.
Yeah.
So somebody else brings up a good question. Tezos and Boss Coin are similar to governance coins coming out in May and June. Is competition good, bad, why? And I think, you know, in case some of you guys don't know, we one of the I think the lead developer from Tezos actually, Arthur, came into the Slack channel a few nights ago, and our Dave was a part of the discussion. I think Jay Rick as well. You guys had some really good conversations, so maybe you could speak to that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that I don't see a problem with there being multiple different currencies, cryptocurrencies. I don't see a problem with there being multiple different cryptocurrencies that try to solve the governance issue. Like Tyler said, we had a good conversation with the lead, and I think that their system definitely is also somewhat similar in spirit. They do approach things a little bit differently than we do, specifically around the two-factor system. If they're a pure proof of stake coin, and I personally don't like pure proof of stake coins. I won't go into why, but I think that they have a novel system. I think that they've put a lot of thought in, just basically from speaking to the lead developer there. I think that it's a very well thought out system, and it could do well. But do I think that it's an issue for Decred? No, I think that there's definitely room for multiple, and in fact, we most likely will all learn from each other, and it will make the whole process, the whole decentralized system of governance for cryptocurrencies in general. The likely result is that everybody will improve.
And that's one thing I just love about this community is it seems like, especially the devs and everybody are just so much more willing to collaborate and work together towards a common goal versus try to work against each other.
Right.
Yeah, it's a cutthroat, man. I really enjoyed it, and I know I kind of instigated that conversation. But I mean, I really enjoyed the conversation. Arthur was a really cool guy, and he seems really knowledgeable, and just being in this space. Of course, I've been here as long as you, Dave, but I've been here a while, and it's really nice to see that level of collaboration. I think that's what the blockchain is all about, is bringing different people together to kind of work in a decentralized manner, to share ideas, to have open debate about things. And debate is healthy. It's very healthy to kind of shoot ideas back and forth, and point out concerns about each other's ideas, give compliments on each other's work, and I think that kind of magic has been lost in the Bitcoin community, and when everybody shoots at each other's throats. It was really nice, and honestly, I was very impressed with the way you guys handled that discussion and collaborated. I think everybody was, and if anybody's curious, we did tweet kind of a log of that discussion. If anybody wants to read the conversation, it was, in my opinion, very informative and spoke a lot to the character of the Decred development team, as well as the Tezos developers.
Definitely, and
Yeah, I definitely appreciate civil debate. It's nice to actually be able to discuss what the pros and cons, because I mean that's something I think often gets overlooked by a lot of folks is every system has pros and cons, right? So it's definitely nice to be able to discuss those pros and cons without all the ego and the name calling and the
Yeah.
the
Yeah. It helps progress.
Yeah.
for sure.
So
does anybody in the chat have any other questions or
yeah,
like to ask? We just kind of want to be open-ended right now. If anybody wants us to talk more about something or rehash something, that'd be awesome.
So somebody has one question. Does Dave think quantum computers are a threat to cryptography underlying blockchain technology, I guess? And is Decred better than Bitcoin in that regard?
So at the current time, I don't think it's it's at a point that we need to worry about it yet. Definitely, it is something that is on the agenda. In the future, not necessarily for Decred, but for all cryptocurrencies, is something that we're all going to have to deal with at some point. I think that specifically right now, it would be very premature to even think about trying to implement one of these quantum secure algorithms because they really are not well vetted yet. There's effectively no proof that they're actually going to stand up against it. And I believe that there's actually been some weaknesses discovered a few months ago, I believe, even in some of them. So I don't think it's ready for that. Blake is effectively the same in that regard as SHA-56. All non-quantum resistant algorithms are vulnerable to quantum computers. So we have the same attack profile in that regard as Bitcoin.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So how many hard fork voting cycles are going to take place every year? And does that depend on, how big the updates are, or are they going to be based on a time period?
Right. So, I mean, a lot of that depends on how long it takes to implement. I mean, we could do the thing, I guess I may not have explained that too clearly before, but a single voting period could vote on multiple changes. I mean, you could vote, and each vote it happens concurrently, but you're voting independently on each agenda. So you could potentially vote on 4 or 5, really up to, there's 75 bytes of vote bits if you want to get technical. So you need about 2 per, so, probably roughly 36. Do you want to say that? Yeah, somewhere around in there, 35, 36, somewhere around in there, issues that you could vote on concurrently.
Wow.
My personal thought, though, is that, every one of these takes time to implement. You need to have proper testing on it. It goes back to the question earlier about the algorithm. I mean, I've personally put easily over 300 to 300 hours at this point into the new stake or ticket price algorithm. And so, it takes a lot of time to properly test, vet, and model all these changes. Obviously, when you make a change, you don't want to put something out and then you kill the whole network off because you made a mistake. It's a very grueling and difficult work that really requires a lot of attention to detail. So, I mean, realistically, probably I would say in general, you're like maybe 4 per year, depending on if it's necessary.
4 like major protocol changes, right?
If it's necessary, that's the case. Yeah. I guess what I was trying to say there is, what is a reasonable number that might happen if it were necessary? At the same time, I don't want to make it sound like, there's some goal to have a certain number. If it's not needed, it's not needed. We're not going to try to push a vote just, to have something to vote on. Absolutely not. It's like, if it's something that needs a vote, because there's a lot of things that we can do. Take, for example, once the changes necessary for, say, Lightning Network, we're going to have that vote. Once those changes are in, it opens the door for a ton of capabilities that probably aren't well known among the community or anything, but there are a ton of opportunities that come from those underlying changes that don't require hard forking changes anymore. You can still have a vote on whether or not you want to enable them, but you wouldn't require that on-chain vote that I was talking about. So, but effectively, because of the timing involved, because it takes a while to test, develop, and deploy, and then the actual voting cycle itself. And after you vote, you also need an upgrade period because the people need to have a chance to upgrade. Realistically, I think the maximum would probably be 4 voting cycles. Now, like I said, you could technically have more than one change per voting cycle.
Gotcha.
Now, and if you would clarify this, just kind of give a really high level perspective. What is the Lightning Network? I mean, it sounds really cool. People love throwing it around. It is kind of a hot topic right now. But what will that actually? what doors will that open for the Decred project, and what capabilities will that give us?
It provides quite a bit, but I mean, instant transactions, effectively unlimited number of transactions. I mean, I'm sure that you guys know that there's obviously with on-chain scaling, every transaction that you add to the chain, everybody on the network has to validate, and so you end up with this quadratic problem where everybody, it's like 2, 4, 6, 8, this exponentially increasing problem. So effectively, it provides unlimited scaling effectively. Like you could actually compete with something like Visa or one of the larger payment processor networks via Lightning, whereas trying to do that on chain really isn't feasible. And that's not just for Decred, that's for everybody, right? So you can't put every piece of data always on the chain, and but there has to definitely be some offloading of that. I mean, there are all kinds of proposals and ways to go about it. You could do very sharding mechanisms and everything, but really Lightning is the best proposal to date that solves a lot of these issues. That effectively, if you want to go down to the coffee store and buy some coffee with Decred, you would want to use that over the Lightning network, right? That's
yeah. Okay, so one part of the show too, and we put this in the survey, is really to talk about change proposals and also talk about funding proposals. So I thought one of the first inquiries that we actually got in the survey was pretty interesting. Somebody is proposing that you guys, the core team, actually work on the 32-way split tickets before working on the Lightning Network. So maybe maybe we should touch on the 32-way split ticket, like what that means and why that's needed, and then maybe the community can that's something that we can vote on in the future.
Right. So, I mean, personally, I think Lightning is far more important than the 32-way split, and the reason for that is because we basically, like I said before, it's not just Lightning, right? The changes that come along with it actually would make, for example, doing things like this 32-way split easier. So doing it beforehand is sort of like doing things out of order, so to speak. I would say
Gotcha.
that. So, but yeah, so that's why I would say that goes first. However, from a pure standpoint of a vote. That actually is one of the things that we definitely plan to improve in the future through the proposal system, is that right now you sort of do have that kind of problem where, like, you have things to vote on, but who decides what gets voted on, right? And so that is definitely something that we are aware of, and the proposal system aims to help solve that. And there will be certainly some guardrails so that not just everybody can make a proposal just because, right? There's going to have to be some.
We do want to shave Jake's cat. I mean, that's been very important for a long time. So.
Exactly. So.
Well, and then maybe you could speak to. So the 32-way split ticket is would allow people to essentially buy a ticket together.
Correct.
And divide a ticket up to 32 parts. So what this is allowing is people that don't hold as much Decred, and maybe if a ticket is 50 Decred and that's, the price is $12, that's, could be
a lot of money.
It's a lot of money to put down, and then wait, effectively from 28 days, maybe sooner, maybe later.
It is. So, there's certainly I guess it is certainly something that is important to do at some point. However, I think that we probably need to be a little bit reasonable too, right, about what the actual lower end limit is going to be. It definitely shouldn't be so high that you only have super rich people able to participate. However, at the same time, you have to think that should somebody that has 50 cents in the system be able to obtain a ticket? Probably not. Sorry, but I know people may not want to hear that, but you do have to be a little bit realistic, right? So, when we talk about the 32-way split, though, I actually ran the math before, and I hope I'm not misremembering, but effectively with a 32-way split, if you were to take the total coin supply that will ever be created, divide that out by the ideal ticket pool size, and then split that 32 ways, you need less than 0.00001% of the total supply to obtain a ticket. That doesn't sound unreasonable. I mean, regardless of how much ever that amount actually comes out to physically be, right? When you look at it from a purely percentage standpoint, I mean, it's not like you have the situation where you have the 1%, the elite.
Right.
You're talking 0.00001%. That's pretty inclusive. And
everybody, and I understand that we have all sorts of different people in our community from different walks of life, and with different financial situations, and it is important when you're determining the future of a multi-million-dollar financial network that you do have some skin in the game, and you have something that's significant to you. And I understand $600 is significant to a lot of people, and it's significant to me. It always has been, especially as a trader. But it's I agree with you 100%. You can't have 50 people with 50 cents having a say, and that is unrealistic. But the important thing is that Decred has the capability for everyone's voice, within reason, to be heard, and that's something that's completely novel and new to the blockchain space. You've seen other governance solutions in the past, and in some of these governance solutions, it can cost up to, I think, as of today, maybe $60,000 or $70,000 to have a say, if you know what I mean. But I mean, when you seriously have a say for $600, I mean, that's incredible. And in the future, I mean, shoot, it might only be you have to have $100 or something like that. But the important thing is that we can't do that. We do care about everybody in our community, and it is important, for even the layman to be able to kind of throw his voice out there and have a say.
Well, and I think it's important to note too is that we're talking about what it's currently capable of, because we can hard fork vote. It's really not out of the realm of possibility that if it becomes a problem, there are all kinds of things that we can change in order to improve that situation. I mean, we could, just as a quick idea, I mean, you could increase the number of tickets that are allowed in the pool, the number of allowed tickets that vote per block, for example. There are reasons. There are reasons not to do that without a lot of extra modeling, because it changes a lot of the assumptions and the payout cycles, and there are a lot of technical details that need to be hashed out. But the point is it is possible. It's not like we're locked into only ever having the possibility of 32 split. I mean, it would actually be pretty easy to increase that number to 64 with a quick vote, right? That wouldn't require a whole lot of extra.
Awesome.
But there obviously that also introduces a problem. Like, how do you find 64 people that agree to vote the same way, right? So but there are, I guess the key takeaway is that, like, we're not locked into this, right? And that's why I love the system in Decred. That's why I'm so excited about it. Is that if it turns out that it's that it's not enough, then
let's change it. Yeah, awesome.
Well, and just speaking to that, and I know you and I have already had lots of conversations about this, Dave, but I am not necessarily in favor of the split. And what I would actually like to see is just more tickets, and more tickets being voted each block. And what that allows in my mind is that people have their own individual vote, versus when we have the DAO and we have all these other things that we're voting on at the same time. How are you going to find somebody who agrees with you in 10 or 12 or 15 different ways?
Well, I think it's another thing to keep in mind there too is when we're talking about the difference between the on-chain voting of protocol changes and DAO type of votes, you're at a different layer. So you could give every individual participant in the ticket an individual say.
Gotcha.
At that layer.
Within the split.
Right. Exactly. So I mean, it would be completely possible.
Okay. And then you would more than likely probably only vote on a couple hard fork changes, maybe.
Right. I mean, protocol changes are generally going to be hopefully not all that often, because I mean, unless there are design issues that comes up or some reason to change it, there's no reason to have one. And so, as I said before, so I don't really see that. At first, they're probably going to be a little bit more frequent, just because there are a lot of things that we know that need to be done that aren't yet. So there will probably be, but over time, I mean, I don't think there will be a huge number of protocol changes. I would say most of the votes are going to end up being, the DAO type of or the layer 2 type of votes. And at that layer, you can, each individual person can get a vote, even if they were participating in a split. So
awesome.
But I mean, I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I do agree that if you're only looking at it from like every single vote is specifically tied to a single ticket, and you start spanning that out, there becomes a big problem of specifically if you start to have multiple agendas in a single, like, because now you don't just have to agree on one, you got to agree on two, and then between
or
32
10
people
or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
and it's
So
a lot of
I
permutations.
I definitely recognize that. Yes.
Well, and I kind of think about it like how Apple controls their stock price. When the stock prices grow too much, they split.
Right.
And they've consistently done that. And by doing that, they allow smaller, people with smaller pockets to invest in their company. And
I don't think that will be out of the question at all in the future, particularly, as technology increases. I mean, you increase the size of the blocks when you do that. There's like I said, there are a lot of considerations from
Gotcha.
a technical because, I guess something that many people may not be aware of, but the parameters that are there are actually there after a lot of work to choose them, right? It wasn't a case of like, let's make that 13.
Yeah. You guys actually did some math before you made those decisions.
So just, it's definitely not impossible to do, but it's a lot of work and modeling and everything to change that. But again, it is definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
It may end up.
Cool.
It may end up. That may end up be where we end up going if that's where the stakeholders end up wanting to go. I mean, that's
up to us.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, and so somebody brings up another good one. Proof of stake tickets possibly getting a share of the ticket fees.
So yes, that is something that will definitely have to happen in the future because ultimately the subsidy is going to go to zero, and they're going to have to get a piece of the TX
piece of the pie.
Yeah, and so again, there are technical things that right now the reason that just for quick. I'm not going to go into the technical reasons, but there is a reason, or more than one reason. There are reasons at the moment that they don't get a piece of that pie, and it's because it would enable various attack scenarios. They can certainly be handled, and we know how to handle them, but just doing it right now, the infrastructure to prevent those attacks and everything is not in place, and so that's realistically why they're not shared. We ultimately definitely want them to be shared because they have to be.
Gotcha. And so how might that work? Would those fees go into like a pot and a little bit of that pot gets distributed in each block, or
yeah, again, I'm not going to go too much into the details, but yes, effectively it will be split pretty much according to in the end, the split would be what it is now, right?
Okay.
That way, because again, you end up at some point, the developer subsidy isn't going to get any more subsidy when it goes to 0 too. So you're going to have to split the fees effectively according to the same split that it is now. And, then that'll be, and the other thing is too, is that this is one of those areas too, where I actually have no problem admitting that I don't think anybody actually knows what's going to happen to any cryptocurrency when the subsidies run out, right? I mean, we have a pretty good idea, right? But I mean, the reality of it is that when it happens, what we expect and what we believe is an entire cryptocurrency community. It may not be the case, right? So there are a lot of other incentive structures. I mean, I can easily think of 10. I won't go over them, but there are many other ways to incentivize ticket purchasing that
people to participate.
Get people to participate other than just fees. But yeah, I mean, the plan is definitely to include a split of the transaction fees.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Do you have anything, DBT? I'm going through the survey.
Well, I think we spent a lot of time addressing questions and things like that. And I think it's best to start kind of wrapping up right now. We can definitely take some final questions. If anybody's joining us and wants to kind of get their word in, but I kind of want to take this time to talk about some things that are happening for Decred. And we, especially I get really excited about stuff. So. As I'm sure as you guys know, we've been in talks with Coinami. We're coming to their wallet, which is really exciting. Another thing, people have been asking us about. They keep making the suggestion over and over again, and I even saw somebody last night in trading say, hey, when are you guys coming to Exodus? Well, we have been in talks with Exodus, and that's as far as we are right now. It's. Nothing's like totally set in stone yet or anything, but that's something that we would love to do and love to be on. And we are in active discussions with their development team at the time. In addition to that, I'd say we've gotten some kind of interest from Changelly on Twitter, and we've kind of been preliminary discussions with them, about being integrated with their platform. I believe they're going to start kind of taking a closer look at us next week, which is really exciting. They're kind of like a Shapeshift competitor. I believe that Charlie Shrem's company, maybe not. I need to do a little more research, but we are doing a lot to make Decred more usable, to bring Decred to more places. And, as we've kind of hammered in over and over again, this is a community-driven project, and a lot of these things that are happening and a lot of suggestions that are made aren't our ideas. They're ideas that the community members present and, we like to pursue. So if you guys have any ideas or you'd like to see us somewhere, please bring that up. We'd love to. We can't be everywhere at once, and we can't do all the research. And, you guys are absolutely instrumental in making things like that happen. So, I mean, if you want to see us somewhere, let us know, and, we'll definitely pursue it. We take everything that everybody says very seriously. So I think with that being said, does anybody have any final questions for Dave or maybe Tyler, or, we can kind of move this towards a conclusion?
Yeah, been going on for a while.
Coinbase and Bitfinex. The community wants us on those exchanges. Yeah, that's just adoption.
We want on those exchanges as well. And it's our understanding from what Charlie has said, Coinbase wants to see a couple of things. It's absolutely an honor that we were invited to speak there. I mean, if you look at the other projects that have been there, they're really, really huge projects with huge market caps. And at the time that Decred presented at Coinbase, we had a pretty small cap compared to what we have today. So it was really an honor. We're very thankful, Charlie, for that opportunity. But Coinbase wants to see, more volume, more liquidity, more use cases, and those are all things that we're working on and things that we're as a community we're making sure happen for Decred. So it's important that we keep making these efforts and keep getting accepted more places and things like that. If you guys want to see us on some of these bigger exchanges, we're going to have to make a big splash in the pond, and I think we already are. And I think they're definitely listening.
Yeah, so lots of volume on the exchanges. On the exchanges we're on now, like Polo, will definitely speak to that. It'll help us get on Shapeshift. It'll help us get on some of these other platforms. And if we are able to integrate with Changelly, I think that will open us up for getting integrated with ShakePay, which is a really cool platform that allows you to load up cryptocurrencies on basically virtual Visa cards. So,
really incredible.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. So people ask, can you spend your Decred on? Well, actually, a lot of things if we're able to make these things happen. So, we're really excited about that.
I think Daniel touched on it earlier, but he's right about the speed at which things happen. It's from my perspective too, it's pretty impressive the amount I mentioned before, but the amount of community involvement and everything that's going on. I mean, there's probably 20 different ongoing things right now. it's pretty impressive.
I can only keep up with the things that my wife tells me, and I know it's a long list of things. So. But a lot of people, sorry, and I guess one of the last things, just watching the questions, but a lot of people keep talking about wallet questions, Prometheus, and also walking them. Somebody wanted to get walked through on the staking process, and Dave, maybe you can speak to about Decrediton, which is your new wallet that's coming out here in the next release. It's already out now, but I guess you can't stake with it. But Correct. I guess staking will be enabled in it, and it's a GUI-based wallet that it should work on Linux, Windows, and Mac, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And it's built by the the core devs like you guys as well. So.
Right, it is. Effectively, we had an actual UX design team come in to make the experience consistent. So it's going to be pretty close to what Prometheus looks like. They're both experiencing some changes, but effectively they're going to look pretty much the same as far as the process. And that's a good thing, because that way if you move between wallets, you don't really have to learn anything new. But effectively, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, but the process will be that you go to sign up on a stake pool, and they give you an API key. It's just a string, effectively. You go into the software and you paste that key in that it gives you, and that allows the two of them to sort of sync up and get everything set up behind the scenes for you. And then you enter the amount that you want to pay for the ticket. How many tickets you want to buy, because the amount's already determined, how many tickets you want to buy, and the expiration period, because remember these fee wars. But hopefully when our new ticket price algorithm changes, we're not going to have those fee wars. But you specify that information, you hit purchase ticket, and then that happens, and the voting rights get sent off to the pool. So that, from as far as the staking process of what you need to do to actually purchase a ticket, that's it for that. And then the next part will be, like I said before, there's a new voting preferences section kind of below that, and you answer the questions to how you want to vote, and then that's it. Those preferences actually get sent off to the voting pool as well through that same API that I mentioned before, and that's it. Whenever the vote gets called, the pool will vote according to whatever your preferences are that you specified, and then if you change them, it gets updated, and then the new votes will follow those new preferences. So realistically, from a user perspective, you put a couple of values in, hit purchase ticket, and then set your voting preferences, yes, no, hit the button, and go to sleep.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And we're really kind of moving towards being as user friendly as possible. I don't think it's any kind of secret that at the beginning a lot of people had issues getting staking set up or whatever. So if you guys continue to have suggestions to improve the user friendliness, please reach out to us. Please talk about it in general. I know Dave is super active in Slack, and as you see right now, he's very open to communication with the community. Reach out and put these ideas forward. It's very important that you have your voice and that you express your feelings about certain things, because that's how we do make progress, and that's how we evolve and move forward.
Yeah, definitely. We appreciate all the feedback there. One of the challenges from a dev perspective is that we're so familiar with everything that sometimes it can be challenging to step back and look at it from somebody who's first seeing this, and like, oh wow, this is it makes no sense, or this is super complicated, and for us it's like, oh, you just do that, right? So it's sometimes hard to kind of step out of your own frame and get. So it's really great to get that feedback from new users, or even existing users, just the community in general.
Okay, so I think what we're going to do at this point, if Dave or Tyler has a closing statement, they can make it now. Whatever that may be. I mean, you don't have to say anything, and I'll wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for coming. It's been awesome. I really look forward to next week. Of course, this is it's probably going to only get better from here. No offense to you, Dave. I mean, I'm not talking about you at all. You were a freaking awesome first guest. We're very honored to have you on the show. But yeah, if Dave or Tyler, you want to go ahead and just kind of, I guess, conclude with what kind of just a brief summary of what Decred means to you, and kind of your favorite thing about Decred, I think would be the most appropriate way to do this.
Sure. So Dave, I just want to say thanks for joining us and being on the show, and it's really great to have you, and put a face to the text.
we always thought that Dave was like in a wheelchair with a keyboard, but it turns out he's a real human. He's actually a really cool guy too. So,
but seriously, I appreciate it. I thank you guys for putting the show together. Definitely, I think it was very productive, and enjoyed talking to everybody, fielding community questions. Really, the only closing statement I want to make is, the vote for the stake diff change. It's pretty important. So definitely excited to see that come through.
Yeah,
awesome. And I think Decred, to me just means the ability to help control the future of what you're invested in and the cryptocurrency space. And I know this is a big issue in Bitcoin, and this is what originally kind of drew us to Bitcoin, and staking and the things that are on the roadmap, like privacy, and some of the things that the team is planning on doing, and the fact that there's going to be a whole DAO that the whole dev subsidy right now is going to be used, and the community is going to be able to control it. And I think the future is really bright for us, and I'm really, really proud to be a part of this project. And even though, I'm just a investor basically, but it's really cool to see the community come together and be a part of it from kind of the early days. And you know, everybody in the community is just really awesome about trying to grow this project and you know, push the needle forward, or you know, push the envelope forward, or however you want to say it. And yeah, so that's why I you know, I'm not getting paid to do this or anything, and you know, I just enjoy talking about Decred because I've been a part of the community for you know a while now, and yeah, so it's just it's fun to be a part of the community. So that's my 2 cents.
So I'll just kind of conclude by saying, you know, I've been a trader for a long time, and you know, it took me a lot of time to become profitable as a trader. And you know, one of the reasons I like Decred so much, you know, is, you know, I don't normally hold things. You know, I'm normally a buy and sell kind of guy, and that's what I'm most comfortable with. But with Decred, you know, and especially as a beginner trader, I mean, there's a lot of hype in crypto, you know. And I still remember when I was first starting out, you know, I bought the top of this, bought the top of that because somebody was talking about it on Twitter or whatever. And you know, it's easy to get roped into situations like that. But you know, with Decred, you can put your money behind a solid, you know, development team. These guys have shown you their faces, you know, their names. They're, you know, work for a real company. They've been around for a long time. They've developed products that have been used for a long time, and they're well respected for doing that. So with Decred, you have an ability to generate a 2 to 4% return per week, or per month, my bad, at the moment. And this is the best return you're going to get. And just in terms of sustainability, I mean, that really is incredible. So my closing thoughts is, you know, Decred is almost like a snowball rolling down a hill, you know, and we've already built up the momentum to where we're unstoppable. We're not going anywhere. This is only going to get bigger. We're only going to have more funds for development, and this is only going to get better. So I'm really, really proud that, you know, to be a part of this community. I'm really proud to be one of a few community managers we have for Decred. It really is an honor. It really has been awesome getting to know all of you, and, you know, getting to interact with the developers. You know, you guys are just a bunch of real people, and I think that's really important. You know, you don't have these huge egos, and you know, it's seriously, it's that's awesome. You know, I really respect you guys for that. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming by today. I really hope you guys will go ahead and hit that like button, share the video, help spread the word about Decred. You know, as we said earlier, everybody does have a part to play in this. This is bigger than each of us as individuals, and if you can help us spread this movement and, you know, tell other people about Decred, it's only going to help further our progress and accelerate, you know, the speed at which this snowball rolls down the hill. So thank you all very much for coming, and we will see you next time on the Decred. The Decred. The Decred Assembly.
All right, bye guys.
All right,
We'll see you
bye,
next
guys.
week.
Thanks for coming. We'll see you later.